Welcome to the SEN in 10 podcast. I'm guest host Darren Clark, and I'm on a mission to spread more awareness. We'll be chatting to educational specialists to bring you inspirational stories and to discuss all things SEN. You can find us on Facebook at SEN in 10, where you can find out more about what we discuss and all our up-and-coming episodes. Thank you so much for joining us today. Can you just tell us your name, background, and a little bit about your organisation, please?
Hi, yeah, thanks. So my name is Caroline Scott, and I run an organisation called Across Cultures, which is all about language learning in the curriculum and supporting learners who are kind of low-level literacy, who have SEN needs, but also EAL, English as Additional Language needs. So it's quite an interesting kind of area there where a lot of learners find it challenging to be able to meet the needs of the curriculum because of, say, language learning needs, but also, other perhaps needs that they have. My background is in all sorts to do with, I'm basically the author and the director. My background's in writing books on language learning in the curriculum, but also as a head teacher in various contexts, and as an EAL teacher, and also with a kind of interest in SEND. And I come from an organisation where we have a team of professionals, maybe there's about 10 of us, who are specialists in EAL or SEND. And we draw from everybody's experiences to try and develop a sort of support for those particular learners. We run a platform that supports EAL and SEND learners in kind of meeting the needs of the curriculum. So it's fully image-based. Running kind of image as the language of instruction, which is quite interesting because a lot of those learners who have English as Additional Language needs or SEND needs actually aren't necessarily literate and find communication challenging and reading challenging. So when we communicate through image as the language of instruction, it's a little bit more accessible. So yeah, that's a little bit about kind of what we do.
Well, it sounds like you're incredibly busy, but doing incredible work. You mentioned that you're an author, a very successful author, and you write a book. But is that because of your love of learning, and then it's a case of putting it out there to do that? Have you always had that inspiration to be an author?
It's quite interesting question, actually. No, I never went out to write a book. I started working in schools where I was quite passionate about language learning and supporting low-level literacy learners. And I started developing like a sort of support and resource for my school, which was funded by a local authority. Actually, this was over in London in Tower Hamlets. And the local authority were quite keen on the work that we were doing. And other schools were quite interested in it because I sort of started presenting what we were doing because we got funding to write this sort of induction to English, really. And then other schools started getting involved a little bit more and seeing what we were doing. And then, time went by and we were working quite a lot in Tower Hamlets region. This is quite some time ago now. And then the local authority said, perhaps it would be a good idea to send it out to a publishing house and, see if you could share it more widely. And at the time, I think I was leaving that local authority and I was moving schools. And I think they thought, well, we really want to share this and grow this work, despite the fact that you're going. And I sent it off to a publishing house who were really keen. And then they said, right, okay, you go ahead and write this, which I kind of felt was already written. Of course, it isn't. You don't, there was a lot to do. And that sort of started my life as an author, I suppose. And then one book led to another on, the success of one leads to the success of another. And, you end up down this path. And I think I published one, maybe it was the last one I published was a couple of years ago. But they're all really on the same sorts of topic, which is sort of making the curriculum accessible for these low-level literacy learners.
It's phenomenal. It's obviously a very passion of yourselves. And it's funny you mentioned that you thought it was already written, but obviously then you had to really dive in and dissect it somewhat. You mentioned also when you were kind of talking earlier about kind of visuals. Now, I know being dyslexic myself, the terminology I tend to use a lot is I see everything in pictures. Is that something that you resonate with some of the learners that you have? That, it is more visual with some of them, the way that they're learning?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. It's a combination of exposure to, images and, the world around you and text and the audio. And it's, each learner finds it easier in different ways. Because we run this platform, the Learning Village, we have kind of got a very special methodology which repeats language patterns with images to support repetition of language, with that image to support the meaning at every point. So it's just it's not the only methodology out there, but obviously it's one that has been very successful within the platform. We've just actually won a couple of awards on SEN to do with our work that we've been doing. So it's quite recognised in the way that it works, and the success it's had for the learners. So yeah.
Absolutely, and a massive congratulations on not only the work that you're doing, but it's being recognised throughout that. What would you say you enjoy most about supporting SEN learners, and the work that you do? What would you say one of the things that you enjoy the most around?
Well, I mean, I'm someone who's kind of very interested in linguistics and language learning. That's my thing, and the whole area of supporting learners with special educational needs is another area that I've worked in for a long time, but it has kind of come to fruition as a result of the language learning kind of environment that I've been working in, because a lot of what is kind of used to support learners who have communication and language challenges often is kind of what we do often for EAL learners. However, there's a kind of a sort of subset of learners who have both SEND requirements but also EAL needs. And it's really difficult to sort of unattach those two things. How do you determine that a learner is not making progress, say, because of their language learning challenges? Is it their language learning challenges, or is it some other challenge? And how do you kind of figure that one out? So, I've got very passionate about the area because, it's very difficult to provide for those learners, even if you would decipher that they have got other needs beyond the language learning requirement. How do you then provide for them successfully? And that isn't an easy answer. And obviously our resources are very much designed and adapted to try and support those kinds of learners. So, my passion is linguistics, really. And I've kind of developed an interest in this area because it's such an area that's just not necessarily supported enough, I feel.
And that was you answered the next question was around, do you think there is enough support out there? And I guess you tackle that with the incredible work that you do. What kind of other support do you think, what kind of strategies can they kind of put in place if they were, kind of just sort of starting out, so to speak, to look at being able to support more?
What, teachers generally?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, there's many methods, but often speech and language therapists, it becomes under their umbrella of thinking about what kind of strategies, depending on the learner's starting points. And I don't think there is a one size fits all, because every single learner is so different with those different needs. But if you can follow a very sort of simple strategy of making sure that they're always comprehending what's happening and that they're not feeling unsuccessful and failing. That's, of course, could look so many different, you could make so many different strategies for that, depending on the starting points of the learner. But I see learners sometimes in this situation where they just can't meet the demands of the curriculum, are really finding it difficult to read. And so the number of times they're feeling unsuccessful is repeated, and that sort of leads them into this sort of cycle of failure and low self-esteem, and then subsequent failure that sort of emanates from that, which you never ever want a learner to be in. So, I can't really answer this is a one-size-fits-all strategy, but definitely make sure they're successful is my
No. Absolutely. And I think you answered it so beautifully, in the sense of, you're absolutely right. There isn't one size fits all within this side of it. And the more conversations we can have, and the different strategies that we can kind of start to talk about that works for an individual is always the best way forward. So, Caroline, thank you so much for taking time out of your incredibly busy day to talk with us today. And thank you so much for all the work that you do. And congratulations again on the award.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us on SEN in 10. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. You can catch all of our episodes at www.senin10.co.uk. You can also find us across social media at SEN in 10. Be sure to give us a follow to keep up with the latest news. And thanks again for listening, and we'll see you again next time.